All right, everyone. Welcome to the brand new week. Cup final week has begun, and we're here every step of the way to discuss that and a load of other things. Loads of stuff happening today, and I'm not lying at all when I say that, John. There genuinely is a lot happening, including just seen Dundee have sacked Tony Docherty. That seems a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, Dundee said goodbye to Tony Docherty. Apparently, Sean Maloney's in the running for that job, going by the reports that I've seen. So that's one to watch. But yeah, a lot going on today, Celtic and otherwise. It's that time of year where the season comes to an end and clubs do all their business and get out of the way before their summer break.
Is Sean Maloney, what's he been up to recently since Hibs? Is he still kind of seen as an up-and-coming manager?
I don't know. I think the Hibs one did knock his reputation a little, but if he's looking to rebuild it, I mean, I think the opportunity is there to do something at Dundee.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, how was your weekend? Did you enjoy Trophy Day? Other than the actual 92 minutes before James Forrest's goal?
Talk about being worth the wait, though. Both in terms of waiting for James Forrest to finally get that goal, and also that the game was a pretty much non-event up to that point. But it was a fantastic moment, isn't it? Talk about football in moments and pinch yourself little bits. Like that's a clip that people will be watching for a long time. It had everything. The way he scores the goal, the kind of layoff for him. You know that Johnston's just dying for him to get a goal. You know that the anticipation's there from the crowd, and then that kind of release of emotion. The crowd went wild for an equaliser against St Mirren, and I mean, meaningless game. I don't think you'll get a celebration quite like that. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant seeing how happy the players were for him. It was brilliant seeing Alistair Johnston's reaction to it. It was just a fantastic moment all around that will live long in the memory for sure.
I love moments like that because as football's a great uniter of people, and everybody had the exact same reaction, not just with the actual finish, but before that, because you're thinking, first of all, the game's over. The game is petering out. I think Yang takes a dribble, loses the ball, and then Marcus Fraser, who had a good game, inexplicably boots the ball back into the box. We work it really well. I think McCowan shifts it quickly. As you say, Alistair Johnston plays it. And suddenly everyone, you just hear, I've actually watched a clip earlier today of it taken from the stand behind the goal, and you just see the ball get slipped in, and suddenly everyone in unison just realises, oh my God, it's Jamesy. And your mind goes 100 miles an hour, and then he slots it home.
See, when I was a young lad in the 90s and the new Celtic Park was first built, one of the abiding memories of the entire experience of getting into Celtic was sometimes like you would go to the toilet or you would go to the concourse or something, and something would happen in the game and you would hear the clatter of seats just clattering down the north stand.
Noise.
The noise of clattering of seats when you're in the concourse is one of the most enjoyable sounds and feelings in all of life, never mind football. And I could just, that anticipation was there. The clattering of seats as everyone stands up to see James Forrest score that goal. Football is wonderful, Hamish.
It genuinely is, though. Like it was an amazing moment at the end of the season, and totally changed the mood, I think, in Trophy Day. I wonder what the celebrations would have been like had we lost that game and not had that moment. I think they would have still been good, obviously, but I just think that goal gave everyone a huge lift inside the stadium. And I think that's important because that's how you remember the day and the celebrations. It's how you were feeling, and everyone felt great after that James Forrest goal. So amazing. Throw it right out there straight away. For me, if I was a manager, I've got him in my starting lineup for the weekend. I don't think he will be, though.
Yeah, first comment in the chat today, Hamish. I know you still can't see this, so I'll bring in comments as we go. But first comment from Pete McGee. I thought the starting 11 injury side picked itself recently, but now for the cup final lineup after recent displays, I'm not so sure. Maybe James Forrest should start in place of Kuhn. I thought James Forrest was fantastic coming off the bench on Saturday. I thought he was just superb. Just aside from his goal, I just thought he was electric running at that St Mirren defence. And his final ball looked dangerous, and it's the same as when he played at Pittodrie. And we said this after it. He gave Graham Shinney a torrid time that night as well. And I'm thinking, if it's me, if I'm picking the team this morning, James Forrest is in my 11, I think, because I don't think you can leave him out, given the kind of, football's a lot about confidence and riding that confidence as well. And experience and confidence, experience, just so valuable in a cup final. And I think James Forrest is riding that wave. This is James Forrest's moment. And I think there's been times over the years where he's not enjoyed this adulation, but it's been building to this point, and he's just had such a storied career, and people are backing him and in his corner. I think it'd be fantastic to see him start this final. And if not, he's going to come off the bench, and I think I think James Forrest could play a key part in beating Aberdeen this weekend. Let's put it that way.
Brendan Rodgers was asked about that very point on James Forrest by Ailey Barber after the game. And it was one of those questions that I was thinking she would get the response of, no, he's not. I think the phrase she used was, has he given you food for thought? And the reply I thought she would get was, no, I know what James Forrest can do. And Brendan Rodgers' actual first word was yes to that question, which I thought was quite interesting. So I wonder if, we might see James Forrest start. I still think it'll probably be Kuhn, but James Forrest, the way he's playing at the moment, I've been obviously we've all been watching him for years, and I think the James Forrest you see these days is very different to the James Forrest we saw in the first couple of seasons. He's obviously lost a bit of pace. I think he makes up for that in a really good way, and I've been trying to kind of put it together in my own mind. What is the big difference between James Forrest now and James Forrest then? And then Alistair Johnston came on after the game, and I don't know if you heard, but he was speaking about. I think he said it's a point Brendan Rodgers makes a lot in the dressing room. He says James Forrest doesn't give the ball away. And that's incredibly rare for wingers. You think of every winger, Dyson, Nicholas Kuhn, Jota, whatever. They do amazing things, but there's times when they turn the ball over. James Forrest, he doesn't give the ball away. He takes such good care of it these days, whether he's drifting inside or even if he's getting a cross into the box. And I love the way Alistair Johnston put that.
Yeah.
It got me thinking, he's brilliant at that.
That's just the way to say as well. We're excitedly jumping from topic to topic here, but just to go on a complete tangent, Alistair Johnston in the media, give that boy a podcast. If Celtic have media savvy, get him down in front of a microphone every week and get him talking for an hour, because he's just fantastic speaking to the media. He speaks with intelligence and insight, but he also speaks with personality, and he's tailor-made. He's going to have a long career in media when he hangs up his boots if he wants it. The same could be said for someone like Kasper Schmeichel. These guys are just great. Kasper Schmeichel did the pre-match press conference, and I thought he was excellent. And these guys they're going to have good careers in the media if that's what they want. And he put the Forest stuff perfectly, and he gave an insight into how the dressing room feel about it. It wasn't just platitudes. There's a genuine warmth of James Forrest in that Celtic dressing room. And it was fantastic that Johnston got to speak about it after, because he was the guy that set Forrest up, and you knew what he was doing with that pass. There was just, I say, the build up to that goal, there was just so much intent in that build up. Even the way James Forrest just totally peeled off that side of the defence was in so much space. It was written, as they say, it was written.
Yeah. I loved Alistair Johnston's stuff after the game. I loved a lot of the stuff after the game. I love seeing, was it Martin O'Neill, Stan Petrov and Chris Sutton chatting to all the players of today. Callum McGregor was there, and Brendan Rodgers was. There was someone else. Alistair Johnston, of course. Sorry. Luke McCowan was really good as well, speaking to Sky. They got their interviews right. Okay, what do you want to start with for today?
A few things, I suppose we will talk about the cup final. One thing that struck me over the weekend is how happy Brendan Rodgers is in Glasgow. Now, I know he's already said he's 110%, he's 150% here next season, but it's coming around to that time he's in the final year of his contract. I think it'll be a pivotal summer in terms of his long-term Celtic future. And he said after the game, he's been speaking to them at Desmond, and talks will take place on that over the summer break. So I think that's an interesting situation to watch. And around that, talking about Brendan Rodgers' contract and the talks that he will have to the club, I think if there was a sense of unhappiness or an uneasiness right now at Celtic, you would be thinking one way or the other. As it is, I just think he's incredibly happy with the job that he's doing and life in Glasgow. He says Glasgow's his home. He did an interview for Winning Manager of the Year over the weekend, and then he said, which you can read on celticway.co.uk, by the way, if you go up. It's a good interview from Rodgers. Yeah. And he says, he's lived in all places of the UK, and that he can sincerely say that Glasgow feels like his home, which I think is very kind of gives a little glimpse into how he's feeling right now. He also talks about leaving a legacy and building the youth academy up, and that's not the kind of pattern you have if you've got one foot out the door. So I'm not reading too much on the tea leaves. I do think a lot on Brendan Rodgers' long-term future will be about how competitive Celtic want to be with him in the dugout, and I think a lot of that will come around to how this transfer window pans out. But if Celtic get their act together and give him the backing that I think he deserves, given the success that he's brought to the club, I think Brendan Rodgers would be quite happy committing to a new contract. Now, we'll see how that pans out, Hamish. I know there'll be a lot of cynics around that and thinking, well, Brendan Rodgers is going to leave at the end of his 3 years. I know some of the stuff he said has kind of suggested that in the past. I'm not sure what your thoughts on it, but I think Brendan Rodgers is in a good place right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a new deal.
My sense is that he'll stay beyond 3 years. I think the point you make about, transfers and almost keeping, I don't know the right word, it's motivated isn't the right word, but keeping him, have that real hunger and desire to for him to feel like there's something there for us to keep improving. I think is big. I go back to the European stuff. See the difference for us these days, having 8 European games rather than 6 against 8 different teams all the way till the end of January rather than the start of December. I just think that makes a huge difference as well. And having the opportunity like we did this season to go further into February, I just think that it's added so much to Celtic's season. And that's the real stuff that I think will keep Brendan Rodgers motivated. Obviously, the domestic stuff, he's proven to be pretty good at winning domestic trophies, and there's no reason why that won't continue going forwards. But for me, it's just about Europe. How much do you want to back him, and can you keep that hunger there to keep progressing? But no, I'm definitely excited. I actually hadn't seen these comments about the planned discussions with Dermot Desmond, but that to me would suggest that he's certainly keen to stay beyond next season. But to be honest, I'm this will sound terrible. I'm quite relaxed about the whole situation. Like I'll be delighted if Brendan Rodgers is here for 4 or 5 years beyond, because he's a great manager. He's probably about as good a manager as Celtic can realistically get. But equally, if he's not around, I don't think Celtic's fortunes die with Brendan Rodgers, potentially leaving the club. Like I think the club's set up to go well under any manager. So I'm actually really relaxed. If he stays for season 4, amazing. If he doesn't, fine.
The biggest challenge with Celtic right now is recruitment, and we've covered that well. And there's aspects around how efficient Celtic are in the market, and there was definite issues in the January transfer window. But that would be the same regardless. You're right. That would be the same regardless of which manager is in the dugout. I think the resources that Celtic cover are obviously conducive to success domestically, and then it's about pushing on Europe. And I don't think we could really have a better manager in place than Brendan Rodgers for that. I think he's shown that the big doubt with him coming back was, he can do it in Scotland and he's probably going to dominate Scotland, but can he push on and improve Celtic in Europe? I think we've discussed a lot. We've seen tangible evidence of that this season, and so it'll be exciting to see what can happen in that regard next season. And again, it's something that Brendan Rodgers specifically noted, that this is where the Celtic team goes next, is trying to climb the Champions League ladder, as he said it, and putting together that kind of consistency in Europe that can make Celtic a good team at the Champions League level. And it's tricky, and the playoff itself will be tricky. The league phase will be tricky, but I do think there's at least signs that Celtic are getting back to where we want them to be at that level, I think.
Europe was brilliant this season. I sometimes think as and generally as fans we don't gush enough about how good Europe was. Like some of those performances, when you look at where we'd been the previous season and years before that, we couldn't even win a game. And this season, we were solid in every game apart from Dortmund. The game was really competitive, and we played against some really good teams. I know if we get into the league phase next season, the fixtures might be more difficult, but there's no reason to suggest Celtic can't target the top 24 again if we're in that league phase. And there's no reason to suggest that this Celtic team won't be stronger for another season. Just very quickly on the playoff stuff. The situation's the same in Denmark. Copenhagen, they're now 4 points clear of Midtjylland. Midtjylland have a game in hand. Looks like Copenhagen are going to win the league, which is bad news for us. Ferencvaros look like they're going to win the league. Bad news for us. The big one, I don't know if you've seen this, is in Croatia, where Dinamo Zagreb drew at the weekend, giving Rijeka the chance to win the league on Sunday, and they lost to third place Hajduk Split. Now, Hajduk Split are still in the title race going into the final week. So it goes into the final week, and it's Dinamo and Rijeka are in the same points. And I think Hajduk Split are 2 points behind. But crucially, Rijeka have a better head-to-head. So if Rijeka win on Sunday. They win the Croatian League, and that will mean that we'll be seeded for the playoff round. So come on, Rijeka on Sunday.
It's an interesting one because if you look at the Croatian table right now, it shows that Dynamo Zagreb are ahead, but it all flips on the last match day in terms of how they order the orders, and it comes down to head-to-head, not goal difference. It's a bit of a confusing way to do it. Yeah, and essentially, I think if Zagreb do win the league, I think it will come down. I think we'll find out around the 30th of July after the second qualifying round when all the teams whether Celtic would be seeded or not. So there's a chance that they would obviously get knocked out in their initial qualifying round. But yeah, if it doesn't happen this weekend, it all rumbles onto the summer. You'd prefer Celtic to be seeded. Just to go back to Rodgers quickly, one of the comments that jumped out to me, one of the quotes that jumped out to me is what he says here, and he goes, "I have loved every moment of being back, not just on a professional level, but on an emotional level too. Since leaving Northern Ireland at 16, I've lived all over the UK, south of England, south of Wales, Cheshire, the Midlands, Merseyside, and I can say that up here feels like home. So the journey on and off the pitch has been enjoyable. Hopefully that may continue." So just to leave that lingering when people are considering Brendan Rodgers' future.
But it's always interesting because there's always this general feeling, I guess, based on past events, that he's kind of choking to get back down south, and he whenever the next opportunity, the next English job comes up, he'll jump at it. If you listen to everything he says, he's incredibly happy to be managing Celtic, and I think, to be honest, probably, well, as he's saying there, he's probably even happier this time than the first time at the club. He maybe doesn't have that same feeling of wanting to go back down south. I mean, it seems to me, and he was talking about his family as well a lot, wasn't he? Seems to me like it could be Celtic and then a wee break for him from football that he might be hinting at.
It seemed like that to me. He said in an interview, I didn't actually include this in my write-up, but there was a quote going that at some point managers do need to have the self-discipline to take a break because of the pressures of the job, because of the pressures of managing Liverpool and Celtic, etc. And he was planning to take a break after the Leicester. That was accurate at the time. I think you'll remember reports around that, and he's confirmed that since he was planning to take a wee break out of the game. But he said the reality is that he knew he would miss it as well, and that after 6 weeks he knew he wanted to get back into something, and then the Celtic opportunity comes around. And I think he just loves it, like I say. And I think it would take a lot for him to give it up right now. But something I think that would make him give it up would be like this professional drive he has as a manager outside of a Celtic context, which is essentially what brought him away from Celtic in the first place to Leicester, in the sense of he didn't feel like Celtic were travelling in a very good transfer direction, and he wanted to compete back in the English Premier League. I think if he has that drive and ambition in him still, then there's always the possibility that he does leave Celtic. But I think there's been a lot said about whether he's going to be staying or going. He's been linked with jobs here and there. I think the message from Brendan Rodgers is like he's in a very stable position right now, and he's going to be here for the foreseeable future over the next 12 months, definitely, and beyond that, who knows. And I just think it's very stable, he's very happy, and I sometimes think all this speculation and all this talk about, he might leave at any moment, etc., I think it's a little bit overblown. And I think he's trying to project that in the way that he conducts these interviews sometimes. I think he's trying to send a message that, no, he's happy here right now and he's not going to be jumping ship anytime soon.
Yeah, it does feel different to his third season, first time round, when you could tell there was stuff up. Every time he speaks about the hierarchy at the club, whether it's Dermot Desmond, Michael Nicholson, he's incredibly positive about the work they're putting in. So yeah, interesting time to look forward. Will Greg Taylor be part of things next season? It's looking increasingly like he won't, based on some I was going to say cryptic Instagram posts. It's not really cryptic, is it? I mean,
no, he said loved it, and it was more telling, I think, the comments under it from his teammates, because he has comments turned off apart from people who follows him, so it's a select group of comments. One of them was Alistair Johnston with a crying meme emoji / gif, or whatever you want to call it, and for me it looked pretty obvious that, like, this is Greg Taylor's last hurrah, I think. That's what it felt like to me. It just seems like he's on like this nostalgic Celtic trip, and I don't think you do that unless you're on your way out the door. So fair play to him, if he's going.
Will they announce it before the cup final, do you think, the club, officially?
It's a possibility, because they did that with Tom Rogic, if you remember. And they did that with Near Beaton, if you remember, just before they left. I think that was before Trophy Day, right enough. It wasn't before a big game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is announced this week. So it's definitely one to watch. And fair play to him and his Celtic career and what he wants to do next. I think he'll go with the well wishes of almost everyone. Brendan Rodgers was asked about it on Sky as well at the weekend, and he basically said he didn't have an answer, so that nothing had been cleared up. And I think when it gets to this point and nothing's been cleared up, it is moving in one direction too. So I'm fully expecting Greg Taylor to go. Obviously, the good news is that Kieran Tierney's on his way back, and I think that's another announcement that could come quite soon, given the English season's wrapping up. And I think when you talk about Brendan Rodgers and what he wants to achieve at Celtic and the Celtic moving forward, bringing Tierney back is quite a big part of this, I think, because it shows that he's building something again. And I think it shows that Celtic are still at the start of something and still improving. And I think Tierney's return, obviously it's a big thing and everyone knows it's a big thing, but because it's been running on for so long, it starts to get taken for granted and people start to disregard it a little bit. But in terms of shifting the mentality of what you want the Celtic squad to be, I think Kieran Tierney coming back is actually quite a big deal, because he's still an elite player who's played at the elite level for so long. Yeah. And I think the fact that he's coming back and committing his future to Celtic indicates that Celtic are wanting to go somewhere or establish themselves at a certain level. And him coming back into the dressing room and being part of this culture, I think, is a big thing. And I think we'll see the benefits of that, not just in the short term, but in the long term too.
That way we absolutely loved Joe Hart at the club. Everyone absolutely loved him, and he had that amazing farewell, and then Casper came in, and I think the general feeling was that maybe Casper was just an improvement in that position, just in terms of his ball playing and stuff like that. I wonder if we're going to have just the same feeling next season of loving Greg Taylor for what he did for the club, but realising very quickly, God, this Kieran Tierney guy just makes such a difference.
I think so too, and I think if you remember, obviously everyone remembers when Tierney was here the first time, he was a bit of a cheeky chappy, he was a bit of a jokester, he's like cutting about the place and that, though, that's satin and beat on and all that kind of thing. I think he's going to come back in a different mindset as well. I hope that he does. I hope he comes back as more of a leader and more of a authoritative, experienced professional. That would be fantastic. I think Celtic fans would really enjoy seeing that from Tierney, just because they obviously see him grow up from being a teenager into an excellent player, and now we want to see the different Kieran Tierney, the focused, driven Kieran Tierney that he is. And I think getting back that different Kieran Tierney, I think could be good for Celtic all round.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. We all wanted them in January, but it's kind of cool at this point that we've got that to look forward to. We're going to have the team, this is a wee bit off everyone, we're going to have the team returning back to Lennoxtown training after a wee period off. We're going to have Kieran Tierney involved in things, and then we're going to get to watch him going through pre-season. What are you thinking about the other left back then if Greg Taylor goes? It seems like Schlupp potentially isn't an option. It just, the way I'm viewing it seems like that's maybe petering out a little bit.
It seemed like Schlupp played himself into contention for it and then played himself out of contention for it for me. I thought the initial 6 or 7 games that he had, whatever he had in the team, was pretty good, and then there was 2 Celtic defeats in short order that Schlupp was a part of and was pretty dreadful in, and obviously got hooked at half-time at McDermott Park, which sent a message. I don't think it will be Schlupp. Now, given that he's on a free, there's always the potential that Celtic pursue that option, but also given that he could, someone's just pulling me up for using the phrase cheeky chappy. That's fair. That's valid. But given that he earns quite strong wages and that he potentially could earn good wages across Europe, just given that he's played in the Premier League for so long, I think there's probably better value in the left back position elsewhere for Celtic. Yeah. Where that is, we'll see. But that we'll definitely need one. So the club will have to do something, but it would probably be a young emerging prospect of some sort to support Tierney.
Alex Vai type kind of signing. I wouldn't be against that. I think they'd potentially, in a weird way, they'd maybe have more of an opportunity alongside Tierney than with Greg Taylor, because I think we all know and expect Tierney not to play every game. I think we are going to have to just be careful with Tierney, and I think the club are going to be on top of that, or certainly I would hope so. So yeah, if we could get someone of the Alex Vai ilk coming from maybe a big club, a young player, and and give them a real opportunity to play, then that could work out pretty well. So that's very exciting. We're in cup final week as well, aren't we? So building ahead to that. I was actually thinking earlier, God, we've got a Scottish Cup final going for the treble. I mean, Saturday's going to be amazing. Can't wait for it.
It's a fantastic time of the season. You can feel the energy, you can feel the happiness of everyone, and you just want Celtic to follow through and execute on that now. I think there's two main talking points in terms of that. You're thinking about the team for the cup final. As someone said, most of it does pick itself, but the Forrest Kuhn thing I think is a very valid debate, and we've discussed that. But also with Rio Hatate now being out, confirmed out, it's about who takes that final midfield place. Now, a lot of people would say Paulo Bernardo. I'd lean towards Luke McCowan myself, just because I think he brings a bit more creativity in that role, and I thought he was very good against Aberdeen midweek. There'll be people saying, no, it should be Bernardo and Engels, but I think it's a valid, at least because Paulo Bernardo's good, but I don't think he's a nailed-on starter for me, just given what he's offered in recent weeks. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I thought he was poor on Saturday, Bernardo. There was a few times he was leaving the ball around. I just think sometimes he just needs a wee bit of a shake, Bernardo. We know he's got it. He's a real talent, and when he does, and I take the point that it's always difficult if you're not playing consistently. It must be difficult to come into games. And I know he started at the weekend, but he's not been playing too much before that. But at times, you just want him to kind of drive games more and really run games. To be honest, I could say the same about Engels. I personally would go Bernardo, probably.
Okay. I'm in the McCowan camp, definitely, I think, at this point.
Yeah, McCowan, I thought McCowan was all right when he came on, obviously involved in the goal, added a bit of urgency, but I thought there was a few times he kind of gave the ball away as well. But yeah, I would go Bernardo, but it's a good choice to have. The other ones, I mean, there's certain ones that are nailed on to start, even though they're not playing particularly well. I mean, I know we were talking him up a minute ago, but Alistair Johnston, I don't think was very good on Saturday. And Anthony Ralston, I think, has been playing really well. But Ralston isn't going to start in the team, so it's not even worth having that debate. But I think someone like Forrest potentially could. I mean, Dyson, you want a big performance from him because as much as he's been unbelievable all season, last few weeks he's kind of gone off it a bit. So you're just hoping that all these guys can turn it on again, because Saturday was poor, but it was a meaningless game.
Yeah, one last push, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know you can't see the chat, Hamish, but I'm getting pelters for being some sort of 1950s variety entertaining, because I used the term cheeky chappy. They're expecting me to do a wee show here, but that's quite amusing. I have been following the chat. I've been looking at your comments today. Hamish can't see it. We're having a bit of problems with the streaming software, so that's why not as many comments are being pulled in. But we do see all your comments, and we will see them all if you're watching this later below as well. I know you're only joking. I'm just having a laugh at you as well. And yeah, enjoy the chat. Enjoyed seeing everyone this morning. There's a good feeling out there. Everyone's in a good mood. You can't be in a bad mood this morning.
Yeah, it's tearing me apart not seeing the chat. I struggle to sleep every night. Okay, quick word from our sponsor. I should have done this earlier. This Celtic Way video has been brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Martin O'Neill stuff, is that still going, John?
Yeah, Martin O'Neill stuff is still going. Just hold on a second, I'll just throw up the graphic. Yeah, £1 for 6 months to celticway.co.uk as a subscriber. Lots of good stuff going on there. Like I say, that Rodgers interview in full, in-depth interview with him for his Manager of the Year, commemorating his Manager of the Year win. Definitely have a look at that. It's a good interview from Rodgers. We didn't really talk about it too much, but he goes into a lot about his past and how he had to struggle in his early days and drive forklifts for John Lewis and all that kind of thing. It's quite interesting. But yeah, so you get £1 for 6 months to like premium articles like that. You get ad-free access to all the news that we put up too. So if you struggle with some of the ads that go up on other Celtic websites or other sports outlets, then you don't have to deal with that if you're a subscriber. £1 for 6 months, plus the chance to win lunch with Martin O'Neill. As we say, he talks very well. You saw that at the weekend. He was on duty for Sky. And who wouldn't want to sit down and have lunch with Martin O'Neill? So get yourself in the draw for that. You need to be signed up by the end of June 1st. It's open to current subscribers and new subscribers. Anyone signed up by the end of June 1st will be entered into the draw to win that prize.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll head off for now. Plenty more to come this week, as John says, on the website, on the YouTube as well, as we build ahead to the Cup final on Saturday and Celtic's opportunity to go for another treble. Can't wait for that one. John, thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
In the chat, even though I can't see you. And I'll catch up with you this time tomorrow. Speak to you then.